the wire from the heater, the blower motor, has melted. We've got some wires missing the covers here. Okay. Yep, new harness. So what we have is the original harness and the harness that is going to be going to the car. Now what I was doing in the video is taking the connections that will go into the cab. So these would go into the harness, the dash harness, or to the rear harness inside the cab, these connections here. And what I was doing is making sure that every pin from the harness was travelling through the wires to the correct, to the destination basically. And what I was doing is taking that to my new harness and double checking, so making sure that that wire did actually terminate this wire. And I was doing that, I was using a multimeter, and it's quite a simple process, it just takes some time. Now what I found easier was taking all the covers off the wiring, so that way I can actually not only just trace the wire using the multimeter, I can physically follow this wire all the way around to the fuse box and follow where it actually goes. Because in some situations, for example here, this is factory, believe it or not, it's spliced into a wire and they run off another connection, so it just helped to trace. You know, it's difficult sometimes because with everything covered you can't see what's really going on, but when you take the covering off, as you can see here, it splits because one goes to one side and one goes to the other, so it just made it easier to take all the covers off to see what was going on. But what is different about this one is this cable here, this wire. Now this wire, I've followed this back all the way through the harness and it comes out at this connection. Now I have no idea what this connection is. I've not stuck anything to it saying what it does, so I'm guessing, and it's got quite a big kink in it, I'm guessing this was actually just tied up somewhere. I don't think this was in use. Now these control the motors for the headlights, so I'm guessing this possibly could be the motor for the fog lights, because I know the JDM ones, the fog lights follow the car, so that's the only thing I can think what that actually does. If I'm honest, I really don't know what other thing that can do. It's not a problem. The great thing about these is you can actually take these to bits and you can pull the wire out, so if I do need it for any reason, I can just pull this wire out, pull the wire out all the way out of the harness, and I can literally just run alongside this one. So it's not a big deal. As you can see here, this black wire, this should go to the fuse box, and it should connect up here. This is the AM2 fuse, and as you can see, it's completely perished. It's rusty. It's melted. But this wire is the wire that's caused all the problems. And if you chase it back, it's difficult to see probably on camera, but this wire, everywhere you follow it back, it's melted into other wires. so it's literally fused itself, and I'm guessing that's what's ground everything out and caused an issue basically. But I thought it was interesting as I went to the AM2 fuse, because on the box here the AM2 fuse is a 7.5 amp, and for some reason this has a 25 amp fuse in, so I'm not sure. I mean, I would have thought 25 amp would have blew if the current was this high to, you know, do this sort of damage. But I'm interested in the fact that the wires are rusty. Now, I did notice that this top fuse here, the relay, the front fog light, yeah, front fog light, it was full of water. Not sure if you can, but it's got some rust around the base. So there's just so much wrong with this. I don't know if it's just been a bunch of issues. The horn it was fitted by just a live wire going straight to the horn. Now that had ground out on the chassis of the car, but the horn fuse hasn't blown, but still it grounded out to the car, so that's not good. So we have the horn at fault. The front fog light relay was full of water. Now that could have been moved around, but was in this front fog light when I looked at it. And you've obviously got some melted black wires, and there's actually a few more little cuts every now and then, like for example down here, if you can work that out, but there's just bits of black wire melted all over. And obviously when the harness is wrapped up, see there's some on this side as well, when the harness is wrapped up, they're not all perfectly in line, they're all twisted around each other. So I'm guessing the heat has travelled through the wire, melted the outer protection, like that for example, and it's melted into another wire and just shorted out. That's the only thing I can think that will cause the wire to smoulder away like it did. Yeah, there's a few things wrong with this, but I've took all that I need from this. Not much, to be fair, I'll show you them in a second, but I've took what I needed off this, so this is scrap. So we'll get rid of this and we'll spread this out on the table and we'll have a look at this. So this set of cables, these head into the under the dash, these go into the cab harness, and these are perfectly fine. I've checked all these cables, there's nothing wrong with them, all the colours are identical, so that's not a problem. So that is ticked off. The connection was on here was smaller, but as I said before, I've took these two wires and tracked them back to here, and then in the old harness I pulled all the wires out, and they surely enough they led straight back to here as well. So, and the wires are the same colours, so this will be a simple case of just chopping this off and putting this in place. As you work up the harness, this is what I was talking about before. This is the motor connections for the headlights, and this is what leads back to here. So as I was saying before, even if I didn't have these, it's not a big deal because I don't have motors on my car. They've been removed, so this will get cut off, and I'll just obviously cover all the ends up and make it look nice and neat and tidy. So that's not a problem. Cut that off. This is the washer motor for your windscreen. They look very similar, if I'm honest. I can hardly tell the difference with them. I mean, yeah, I'm pretty sure they'll both fit, but I know this one does. So, and it's a simple job, so I'll just chop this off and splice this in and replace that connection. And then it's the same with this one. I don't think this is even connected, if I'm honest, but this connection here is from the original harness, and it's obviously different to the one that's on the new harness. Once again, I've chased the wires back, and on both harnesses these go back to the same place, and they're the same colour and in the same location, so clearly it's just a different plug. So that's not a problem. I'll do the same thing. I'll cut this back here and splice this in and wrap it up in tape and do it all nice, you know, make sure it's all safe. And then these are your indicators in your headlights, same kind of thing. This is your original headlight connector, but I've got aftermarket headlights which use these two connectors. So what I'll be doing here is, the reason, oh, I should point out as well, the reason why I've taped this here and not back here, this is the length I must have. If I cut back here and connect this up here, the headlights won't, the wire won't reach. So I have to make sure that I cut after this point. So what I'll probably do is cut, actually I'll cut past all this rubbish. So I'll probably cut these here and cut these here, and then put these two together, and then these all get nicely wrapped up in tape. You know, I'll be soldering them and heat shrinking them and then wrapping them in tape so they're all secure and protected. So that's your headlights, and the rest are just your indicators. It looks worse than it is. It does look like a mess, but literally it just looks, because there's so much of it. But it will be a case of just cutting, basically as before, cutting this off, putting these in place. And I will be doing a better job because whoever's put these in before just literally had them like this. So what I'll be doing is this will all get covered in protective sleeving, and yeah, it'll be I might even wrap them in some tape as well, some you know, the insulation tape. So this looks a lot because this goes to your side indicator, and obviously that's some distance from the front of the car, so it just looks messy, but it's just the cable all wrapped up. And this is the hose that goes to your window washer bottle. So it looks worse than it is, but honestly, I mean, when you look at it, technically splice this in, splice that in, splice that in, cut this off and cover it up and splice that in, and that is the right hand side done, and that is the hardest side. So if we go over to the left hand side of the car, so this is the passenger side. All this is fine. That black blank plug there is the same. This plug's the same, wires all go back to the same place. Fuse box is perfectly fine. This connection, perfectly fine. Same as this, perfectly fine. As before, this goes to the motors, so that'll be getting cut off, probably back here, so it's nice and neat and tidy. And I'll obviously heat shrink all this over and wrap in some fabric tape. This is perfectly fine. So all that leaves us with basic on this side is the headlights, which is a similar kind of situation. This is your original headlight socket, and this is the aftermarket ones. And all I'm literally going to do is probably cut off here and cut off here, and then put these two together. And then it's just like before, these are your indicators, and it looks worse than it really is. It's just a matter of splicing them into the original indicators. So splice indicators in, splice headlights in, and that is the left hand side done. Okay, so I'm back with the dash harness. Unfortunately, not good news. So, I think I should point out firstly the flaws with this dash harness. As you can see, all these splice wires here, firstly, these should be on a block. There should be a connection at the end of these, and the electrician that the guy hired to try and fix the problem cut this block off and hardwired them directly to the front harness. So that's obviously a problem straight away. I don't know if you guys can work this out, but as you can see, it looks to be that same black wire, and it is completely melted through. I mean, it is completely shot, and this comes all the way down to this plug here, which I believe goes to the back of the car. Yeah, this is the bottom. I think these three here go to the rear of the car, and these two go to the door, the car door. So yeah, this wire here, all the way from the plug, from the looks of it, if you fold this up, it goes all the way through the harness, and it's actually melted through here. Hopefully you guys can see that. And then it's actually, there's literally no plastic left, it's just a bare wire here. And it continues up to here. And luckily, I've examined all these wires here, and I can't seem to see any signs of any melting, of any wires being damaged. All the way back here. And is yeah, right, that's that same wire, isn't it? So there's that wire again. It's continuing down, so does it make it to... So just so you know, at the minute we're at, this is the center console, this is your stereo, and all the cables that go to the rear. This is your speedo, so we're currently at where the steering wheel is. So this is your ignition, and these will be all your fog light switches and horn and all them little buttons that go under your steering wheel column. So the wire traces back to behind the steering wheel for sure. I can't see any signs of damage. Okay, so there was something around here which had damage. I remember when I took it out of the car. Is it that one? Oh, they're okay. The ignition is this one. Ah, right, yeah, it's the ignition. So this is where the damage comes. Yeah, you can see it here. So this is that black wire coming down. Okay, so touching lights. The reason these were like this is because the immobilizer was connected here, and I've disconnected it. So I can get out of the car. Right, yeah, that one's damaged too. So it seems to be that black wire and this black wire have completely melted. So it seems to be the wire goes from ignition to the steering wheel column, along the back of the dash, then down the side of the dash into the plug that goes to the rear of the car. Now I have checked the wires briefly, I might need to check them again, but the wires that go from this connection to the rear of the car, I have checked these out, and they did seem to be okay. So plan B might actually be feasible. So I should let you guys know, I wasn't going to reuse this harness, so I went out and purchased a replacement dash harness, and the guy was braking an NA engine MR2 Mark II 1992, and for some reason this is a turbo harness. This connection is different. This connection on mine's tiny. On the other harness, it's longer. In fact, tell you what, I'll come back, I'll put the harness on top of this, and I'll show what I mean. Right, this is where it gets a bit messy. So, I mean, it looks a mess, but sadly I can actually kind of see where everything goes. I think I've looked at it that much, it just I became familiar with it. So, this is where it starts going up behind the dash. So, if I can try and find that cable I was talking about. See this one here, this grey one, it's much bigger. On my one, it's smaller. And there's a few differences. I can't remember off the top of my head, but the turbo one has all this stuff attached to it hanging off. No idea where that goes or what that even does. Some sort of relay for some M4S. Means an out to me. So this goes to your centre console. Now your centre console, this is completely different. On the turbo one must have speakers and all sorts of gadgets and gizmos, because on my centre console harness, it was a very simple wiring harness. I went to the back and went 2 speakers, and that was basically it. But this thing, this is completely kitted out for no idea what. It's like a whole new harness. So that is different, but I think that would work if I'm honest. The ones I needed were there. There was just a lot of extra ones. But my main concern, and I do think as before I could probably, you know, chop and change these bits around and get them to work. But what I don't like the idea of is the speedo. Now, the fact that they're a different colour straight away is worrying. So I'll just get these. So this is my original speedo connections. And you got a blue one, a white one, then a little grey one. On this one, on the turbo one, you have 4. You have a little white block, you have a brown one which is smaller, you have a blue one in the middle which is smaller, and then you have this one at the end which is also smaller. I've checked with my speedo and none of these fit. And the wires going in the back of them are all different colours. Nothing's the same. So I think, I'm guessing in order to get the old ones to work with this harness, I would probably have to remove all the wiring and probably chase this whole section to where it all goes and remove it and put this one in its place. That to me is a huge job, and I wouldn't know if it was correct, and if I got it wrong, it would be difficult trying to diagnose what I got wrong. And this just seems overkill. There's so much stuff in this harness that I don't even need. I mean, I've got extra stuff that it's just not even in my car. And then down here, there's extra relays and extra plugs and fuses. For example, on the new harness, it has this relay at the top, which is wired in. I've got a relay down here, and this is connected up. It's doing something, but on this new one, there's nothing there. There's no wiring, no nothing. So whatever that does on my car, this new harness doesn't have it. So if it's important, if I need it, then there's just too many variables. And I have checked a few of the random connections. I can't remember what they were, but there was just random blocks that I looked at, and the wires were there, but in different, they were pinned differently. All the connections are slightly smaller or slightly bigger, and I think using this turbo harness could be a right headache. I honestly think I'm just going to run into so many problems, and I might get the engine to start, but then blowers might not work, the radio might not work, this speedo could go the wrong direction. There could be so much going on. So what I've decided, for now anyway, is I'm going to, as we've already found out, the wire isn't as bad as I expected. It seems to be the 2 black wires that run from here up along the back and then back down. So what I'm going to do next is remove all this tape and all these fittings all the way down to here and see what damage has happened. Now, it's melted through this plastic here, so does that mean that it's melted through into 6 or 7 different wires? This could be not repairable. I could look inside here and you could have a cluster of a dozen wires all melted together, and if that's the case, replacing all them correctly could be quite difficult. But next step is to strip this all down, get the tape off, and let's have a look, shall we, and see if it is repairable. So let's get going.